Okay, so let's see. Oh my gosh, I love how new yarn smells. Hey everyone, it's Natalie, also known as Knitty Natty. Welcome to episode 174 of the Love and Stitches podcast. I just heard Toaster jump up and join me. Hi buddy! It's a beautiful sunny day here in New York City. The weather's still quite cold. I don't know what the norm is for the end of March, but it's like in the 40s today and feels pretty chilly. I'm feeling really low energy today. I just want to name that in case you can kind of like tell, but I usually find that when I start podcasting, slowly my energy levels get brought back up just through the thought of like talking about knitting, sharing about knitting, and knowing the joy that the podcast brings. I'm also drinking some tea today. Normally I record this in the morning, so I'm drinking my coffee, like the last bits of my coffee. Ow, oh my gosh, it's very hot. But today I am filming in the afternoon, so I just made myself some Harney & Sons Paris tea in this beautiful mug that I got from Polly Studios, which they vend at a lot of different yarny events. Okay, so today is the last podcast of the month of March, so I'm going to be reviewing all of the things that I had my sights set on for March and talking about what my upcoming knitting and crochet plans are for April. They've changed slightly since I made my project video. I also, spoiler, I haven't finished my Citrine Light sweater yet. I am getting a little bit frustrated with it and I need your help. So stay tuned for that coming up in the project section. All right, I feel like we just need a collective deep breath. If you've been having a difficult week or anything like that, let's just, okay. Grab your tea, your coffee, your water, your project, and let's enjoy a couple of hours together in yarny bliss. Whoa. Okay, I just let a little more light in. I don't know, that seems like it's gonna help just a little bit. It's a very bright sunny day, but there's still like a lot of clouds in the sky, so they're like reflecting in here and making it a little hard to see, but I think that is helping. I guess it doesn't help that I'm wearing black, but I am wearing my New York City Knitters t-shirt today, representing the group that I like to join on Meetup once a month. Okay, we're here to talk about projects, so let's talk about some knitting. I have two finished objects this week that weren't even a little thought in the apple of my eye. What's the phrase? I don't know. My brain is not working. But these were not even something I was planning on until I think after the podcast last week. So they're a quick project that I started and finished within the last week. And that is these Yarn Cozy Lights. So Yarn Cozy Light is a pattern that is my pattern that I sell on Ravelry. It is a cozy. What is wrong with me? It is a cozy for a 100-gram cake of fingering weight yarn. I also have different sizes and crochet versions, but both of these different versions, the one that is very plain and the one that has little cables on it, are both from the Yarn Cozy Light pattern. So I made these on, well, I finished one up today, but I started them on Sunday for the Knit for Food Knit-a-thon, which I'll talk a little bit more about later on in the life segment. But I wanted to make something for all the donors that donated under Love and Stitches to win as a prize. So I wanted to make 2 yarn cozies so that I could select 2 people at random from those donors to receive something that I made during that day. My goal was to make 1 cozy in the first 6 hours and the second cozy in the second 6 hours. It's a 12-hour knit-a-thon, and I think I got to like here on the second cozy. I finished this one and then I got to here. I ran out of steam. I overestimated my abilities, and to be honest, I probably should have picked maybe, and I don't have these versions yet, like a DK weight, but I probably should have picked a fingering weight pattern and a DK weight pattern to switch things up to kind of give my arms a rest, because they were definitely tired after all of that small knitting in the round. So let's look at each of the cozies. So this yarn is yarn that I had left over from my summer sorrel. I'll put a picture of that right here. You can see it is the top color that I knit. And then actually the bottom color, the purple, is what I used for a contrast color I-cord bind off. So thanks to, there was somebody that when I did an Instagram live that day reminded me that that's what I used the yarn for, because I couldn't remember. It was just a yarn in my scrap drawer. So this is Yarn Over New York, and the color, oops, I forgot to pull that up. I don't have it memorized. The color is Loyal. This one I don't remember. I didn't put that in my project page since it's just such a small bit, but they're both from Yarn Over New York. So that one's all done. You can see it's a lovely little rib, and this is gonna go off to one of the donors. Then I started the second one and didn't get very far on it, but that's all right. This one is from a pair of socks right here that you can see that I knit back in, I think, 2021. They were just a simple pair of socks, and the yarn is from Biddy Knits, and it's called Ocean Air. So for this one, I opted to do the cabled version, which really comes to life when you actually put a skein of yarn in here and it stretches out. You can see the little faux cables and the rib. It's really, really nice and cute. And then all the cozies in with a nice little I-cord bind off. I just stuck with the same color on this one. So this one's all done. I actually just finished it during my lunch break today. So it feels good to have both of those finished, and now I can draw the names of the winners from my donors and send those off to them this week. So I feel like I wanted to get those done on Sunday. I just didn't get it done. It's okay. But now it's like, okay, job well done. I can have those finished, shipped off, and go back to working on my personal projects. I just took out my tea bag. I brought a plate in here just for that, because this tea gets really bitter if you don't actually take the tea bag out. I'm a bad tea drinker, and I just leave the tea bag in most of the time while I drink the tea, but not this flavor. Oh yeah, that's pretty good actually. Good job, Natalie. Okay, I need to talk to you about my sweater. I think just the fact that I had a week that was very mentally taxing, physically taxing, mentally taxing, just meant that my knitting was gonna reflect that, and I just wasn't in the state to make decisions about my knitting. So hold on, I have my sweater here, but my yarn is somehow, oh no, it's not attached. I forgot I cut it. Okay, so let me catch you up to where we were last week. This is the Citrine Light sweater by Emily Green. It's a beautiful, beautiful pattern. I am, however, having a little bit of an issue with yarn. I don't have enough yarn, that's the issue. And so I knit on it a couple of weeks ago. And then last week I had it to the point where I used up all my yarn, save for some for the tubular bind off, but I was an inch short on the ribbing at the bottom here. So I had decided I was going to, whoa, we are dark. There we go. I had decided I was gonna put it onto the try-on tubing and block it to see how much it would grow in length and if it was gonna be an appropriate time to bind off, or if maybe I needed to make a full effort into finding more yarn, maybe in a D-stash or something like that. So I did do that last week. So I put all my live stitches onto the tubing, I took all the markers out, and I fully soaked that thing, and then I laid it out to dry. So here's a photo of it blocking. I do plan to put up a YouTube short and an Instagram reel on how I do that. But I really like this process of blocking before it's bound off, because I know that if I had done that entire tubular sewn bind off, I would have been really resistant to ever unpicking that tubular bind off and making any changes to the sweater. But because I hadn't proceeded to that final step yet, I've now been able to take the time to kind of think about, you know, if I want to wear this sweater, which I do, what are the things I need to do to make it just really right for me? So I did that, and I tried it on, and here's a picture of me trying it on so you can see what it looks like. And I was just like, I don't know, it just still doesn't look right. I put it on with jeans. I had Kent look at it. I looked in the mirror for a long time. I turned around. I kind of adjusted it on myself. And I'm like, I just don't know. There's just something about it that doesn't look right. But then for some reason I decided, you know what, this is as good as it's gonna get. I'll just start binding off, and then I'll really be able to try it on and see what it looks like. Because even with the tubing, it's a little bit hard to see exactly how it's gonna look. Hold on. Ambulance brake. So I started to bind it off, and this was last night when I was just, again, having just kind of a day where things just didn't really feel, I just felt kind of blah, but I was like, you know what, I'm feeling some energy again, let me try binding this off, and it will be great. So I cut my yarn, so I am detached from the very measly amount that I have left, and I started doing a tubular bind off, which I'm going to show you what it looks like right now. Here we go. Okay, so that's the tubular bind off. I think it's a little hard to tell from here, but the tubular bind off and the ribbing itself is rippling. So I had seen this when I first picked out this pattern in the project pages. I would recommend this if you can, if there's a project that you're going, or a pattern that you're going to knit, and there are some projects already on Ravelry. I feel like most patterns will have this because they will have test knitters, so you can really get to see what things look like. So I went through the project pages of the test knitters, and some of them had noted that it was rippling on the bottom. Some of them hadn't noted it, but had taken photos, and you could tell that the ribbing was rippling on the bottom, but not everyone's did. Some people's looked great. The sample and the pattern looks great. It really doesn't look super ripply. If I really looked, it maybe looked a tad bit ripply on the bind off, but the ribbing itself looked great. So it kind of like had slipped out of my mind until I started doing the bind off, because everything else really looked quite fine, especially when I tried it on. It doesn't really look, oh, you know what would be helpful if I explained? When you go from the portion of the sweater that is stockinette with ribbing just on the side panels, you actually increase, you can kind of see that there, you actually increase all along here before you start the ribbing. I think so that the ribbing doesn't draw in too much. But I think in this case, in some of the sizes, or maybe just in some of the yarns, just depending on what yarn you use, the increases are too much and it creates a rippling effect on the bottom of the sweater. It could also be just different people's gauge when they knit in purl versus when they are knitting, that there's a bigger discrepancy than there was for Emily when she designed this, or for other test knitters when they knit it. There's lots of factors here, so I don't want to say like the pattern is just like wrong in this aspect. I think there just might be a number of factors coming in. So something to note. So you can't really tell, and it's not even that bad. Can you kind of see how it's like sagging? Well, it would be helpful if the yarn wasn't in front. If I hold it up, where I'm trying to like keep this all straight, I don't know if you can see. And I honestly, it's so hard to tell, like, is it going to ripple or not? I feel like if I have the rib like lined straight, like where these knit stitches are straight, it's just too much. It's like it's too much fabric here. See how it's wanting to like poke out and in? So that gave me an idea. I stopped pretty quickly because, again, the tubular bind off is not fun to unpick, and I didn't want to do the whole thing just to test it when I was already getting this gut feeling that it wasn't going well. So I had this thought, and this is what I really want your help with. I mean, of course, anything else that I've said that you can, if you think of another solution, please say it, because I will be reading your thoughts and comments. But this is what I was thinking. If my ribbing with the increased stitches according to pattern is not working out, then maybe I could resolve the rippling and I could resolve my length issue by returning to this point in the sweater. Hold on. Returning to just before the ribbing, not doing any increasing. I think I increased 60 stitches, which is a pretty significant amount of stitches. So then each round of ribbing, when I start the ribbing over, would use less yarn. It would hopefully stop rippling. I will say this, I did see one project page where the person ripped their ribbing out, didn't do any increases, and it didn't look like it rippled at all. So if I take out the increases, I keep saying the wrong thing. If I take out the increasing of stitches, my yarn will go farther in the ribbing, right? I will be able to do more rows of ribbing because I will have fewer stitches. I don't know if I'll be able to do like another ½ inch or like more or less than that, but that may just be the ticket of what I need to do. So I was gonna try this on for you, but I realized that it's on needles and that's not going to work. I need to put it back onto the tubing to try it on, but I already tried it on. I already took a picture. I already showed it to you. It's just, something about it is just not right. I don't know if it's the length. I don't know if it's the overall shape. I don't know if it's the ribbing. I don't know if I need to start the ribbing earlier and rip back, maybe even rip back into this stockinette part and start the ribbing a little earlier and not do the increases. There's too many things to think about, and I want to take the time so that I can make the smartest decision with all the information that I have. It may still not be the right thing, like when I do this second version, but I don't want to just rashly go into a next thing. So I am just gonna take a couple days off of this, of thinking about it. I haven't really done much on it, but take a couple days off of thinking about it, see what all of you are thinking, and then we will be returning to this Citrine Light. I don't want to leave it lingering for too long, but I do know that taking a break from projects can greatly help with kind of distancing myself enough to make smart decisions, even if it means pulling stuff back and knitting on it longer. All right, so that's one project that didn't go right, and let's go over to one that's going great. Most of what I did this week is work on my new blankets. I want to show you the progress that I have made and also kind of tell you what I'm planning to do with all of the yarn. So here we go. And I've been learning a new skill. So many different things. All right, so I am knitting the Quadrophenia by KF Jones. It is a blanket that is knit in 4 pieces, 4 basically big old triangles, and it is made for Advent knitting. Actually, we should really show you a picture of what it looks like to kind of get an understanding before I show you the knitted pieces. Because when I was posting it on Instagram, I got a question like, is that a shawl? Because it really does look like one. All right, so here is my Quadrophenia. Oh, but wait, this is not all. I have been really working on this. So you can't really see my cute little marker there, but I have a really cute little Mickey ice cream cone marker. I actually got this at Disneyland like 6 years ago or maybe more. They used to sell these charms that you could buy and then make bracelets out of, but I would take them, remove the hardware, and put the lever back clasps on them and make stitch markers. To my knowledge, they no longer have the charms at any of the stores, but if you ever found a Disney charm, you could just do the same thing. So I had worked through 2 colors last week, and I then added a 3rd color here to this first quadrant. And let me tell you what color that is. Actually, I think it's Churros, but I've been keeping the little tags that came. This is Fangirl Fibers Disney Advent Calendar from 2021. So yes, so this color here is Churros, which looks exactly like it, right? And then I just barely started in the 4th color rather, just because I wanted to get it in there and get it started and have it ready for me if I ever wanted to pull this back out and work on it. And this one is called Popcorn Buckets, but you'll see it again when I really do a little more work. So this is just the first quadrant. This is the quadrant that I'm calling Quadrant A because it's the one that I started first. And when I started having too many stitches, you can see you work in increase. When I started having too many stitches for my 24-inch circular, I switched over to a 32-inch cord, and then I put the cords on, I put the end stoppers on the cords and put this one down for a nap so I could start the next quadrant. So then I started Quadrant B, the 2nd quadrant. Let me pull this little guy over. It's getting tangled in my sweater. Then I started Quadrant B, and I have made it through 2 colors. I've just added the 3rd color on this one, so I'm super duper proud of myself because I have worked through so many colors over the last week. I think, what is that? 4 colors since the last podcast, and my new goal is to work through 4 colors per week so that I can have this finished by the end of May, because there are 24 colors, 4 colors per week. That means, wait, I did the math earlier. 24 colors divided by 4 is 6. So 6 weeks of knitting. We're in the 2nd week right now. So I think it's going really, really well. So this quadrant, we have 2 colors in it so far. The first one here, I ended up liking so much more than I thought in the skein. It is called Casey's Corner. And then the second color here is, I have to say it's my least favorite color so far. Not really a fan of it, but it does go exactly with the theme. And that is Pirates of the Caribbean. I mean, it's perfect, perfect, perfect fit, but just not a color I would probably use for anything else. But I did try to balance out the brighter colors and the softer colors with the darker colors that have like browns and blacks and grays in them throughout the entire blanket. So I've just added in here the 3rd color, which you can't even really see because the first couple of rows of switching colors is a slip stitch pattern to kind of mesh them together. But this is the next color, and it is called the Country Bears, and it looks like this. So that one's gonna be really, really fun. I'm a little worried about there being brown back to back, so I'm gonna have to see how that looks after a couple of rows, but I hope the pink will lighten it up. I try to pull pink into all the different quadrants and kind of balance things out. So this has been such a joy to knit. I've been having so much fun. I haven't wanted to stop. It's basically been the only project that I have been working on, aside from when I stopped working on it to do these 2 cozies from Sunday to today, which is Tuesday. So I've had a couple days off of it and I've missed it. I've missed doing this project. So I want to keep working on it while I have so much motivation. But something else that I have been working on whilst working on this project is learning to wind center pull skeins. So this might be the first one I did actually. I have been, usually when I get a mini skein, I will just wind it into a ball. So when you're pulling from the ball, it's coming from the outside and the ball kind of rolls around. I mean, it didn't really bother me until I made a center pull skein and saw how convenient it was to just have it like sit there and the yarn pull out. See, this one doesn't do so good because this is one of my earlier ones. But now when I make them, I don't even have to hold on to the ball. The yarn just pulls out. I'm getting better at it. But this was one of my earlier attempts that I have been, they're getting a little bit better. They got a lot better and then they got a little sloppier. So now I need to practice a little more. But this is the latest one that I've done after like 5 tries. I think it's it's still kind of messy, but it's a little bit flatter. Like you can see on the bottom, you can see everything. And then it pulls out without me having to hold it. Like the yarn comes out of the center so much easier. So I'm really proud of myself for this. And if you ever want to learn how to do these center pull balls, there's lots of tutorials, so just look one up. But keep practicing because you'll get better at it, I promise. There's one more thing I wanted to say about this project. Let me see. Oh, you know what it was? So even though this pattern is designed to use up as much of your yarn as possible, I still have a little bit left over because I don't want to go all the way to like the last 3 inches of the yarn. I want to have a tail. I want to have a little insurance in case I knit a little tighter on one, segment than the other. So I have just a little bit of yarn left over from each one, and I've just been putting them in this pouch, which is where I also hang on to all the cards. So I have, not much left. Like that's from the Pirates yarn that I just cut off this morning. That's from one of the other ones. So they're just in here so far. But, oh, and here's a little stitch marker. Can put that away. My plan is to start adding these to my magic knot ball so that I can use up every single bit of this lovely yarn and then I won't have any wasted leftovers. So that's the plan, to really use all the scraps to their fullest, which feels really, really good. So I'm very excited. I'm gonna set aside Citrine Light for a few days, work on this for a few more days, and hopefully this will be a beautiful blanket by the end of May. You know what I just realized as I stopped talking about that blanket project is that I was saying the end of May because I'm feeling like it's already April, but it's actually still March as I'm filming this and as you're watching. I don't know why this last week of March has me like in limbo between the months, but next month is April. I want to finish the blanket by the end of April, not May. I think I said that twice about the blanket, which is just silly. I have one more project to talk about. It's not anything that I knitted on this week, but my yarn for all of the lights is here and I haven't seen it yet. I figured we could open it together. So one more sip of tea to help us get prepared. Okay. So first let's talk about all of the lights, and I'll just hold this package. I've already cut it open on the top, but I haven't pulled the yarn out yet to see it. So all of the lights is a cardigan with cables all over it. It's by Joji Locatelli, and I agonized this whole entire month trying to figure out what yarn to use. I was trying to get myself into the Tweedy yarn from Hedgehog, but it just didn't feel, for me, it didn't feel comfortable enough for something that I'm going to be knitting on for so long and also wanting to wear a lot. So then I turned to my friend Bree, who is the dyer behind the Little Wolf Knits. She had already given me a suggestion for a color called Seashell that is kind of a neutrally pink. It's still pink, which is what I was aiming for, but it's not like in your face pink like some other things. And I think that it's gonna be beautiful in these cables. So I've got my package right here. I ordered a lot of yarn. It is a big coat and the cables take up a lot of yarn, but I also ordered an extra skein even from the size that I'm gonna knit because I wanna have a little bit of insurance and I want to be able to make really great big swatches without having to worry. This is making me learn my lesson. I know that's not exactly my fault because it's not like I ordered this yarn for the sweater, but even still, I am learning. I have been knitting for a while, but I'm still learning. Okay, so let's see. Oh my gosh, I love how new yarn smells. Let's see what it looks like. Oh my goodness. Look at this. This is called Seashell by the Little Wolf Knits. It is a lovely mauve-y pink base. I mean, it still has like a little bit, it's definitely like a more, it's a little deeper than I thought it was gonna be. It looks a little lighter in the photos, but it's really pretty. It's kind of good because it's more of like a brownie pink, like a tan brownie pink. But what I love about it is that it has little bits of darker pink, little bits of blue, little bits of like sometimes like a gold orangey color, which is so pretty. Oh my gosh, and does the yarn feel way better than the Tweedy yarn? I mean, it's definitely better because it's a merino. So I'm excited to knit with this and see what it's gonna look like in the cables. What do you guys think? Is it gonna make a lovely, oh, that actually looks a little lighter. I was gonna say it looked so dark on the screen. It really doesn't look as dark in person, but I think that's gonna be beautiful. Oh, I'm so excited. So I have, I think, 9 skeins. Let's see. Did you send them all to me, Bree? Wouldn't that be kind of funny? Oh, I love this chocolate mint. Can make some more tea here later. Oh, here's Bree's card. The Little Wolf Knits. Okay, let's get all of this out of here. Oh, and there's a tag on one of them. Actually, that's really smart because it's not like I need 9 tags on the yarn. I'm not buying it in a yarn store. So here we go. Seashell with a little heart. I love it. Okay, now I'm ready. Now I'm ready. Can you imagine me wearing this now? As a sweater? Oh, this is so exciting. Okay, well, this is gonna be fun. So I am definitely gonna be doing some yarn management here and like playing with things and just making sure, probably blending the yarns and everything, even though these were all dyed at the same like in the same session of dyeing. You can't fit this many yarns in a pan. So whenever you do hand dyed yarns for a sweater or a large project, you always want to make sure to alternate them. So I'll be figuring that out later. I don't know what that's going to look like yet, but I am very, very excited for this. I feel a lot better about this than the Tweety. Since it is the last podcast of the month, I want to do a review of how my March, why can I not get that right? How my March went and what I have planned coming up for April. So I didn't do my March project plans the way that I usually do them, which is at the end of the previous month, so at the end of February. At the end of February, I was in Texas at the Knitting in the Hills retreat. And what else was going on? I feel like there was something else, maybe a project I was wrapping up. I was finishing up my granny square blanket and wasn't ready. Like when I got back, I had to kind of get work back organized, the household back organized, and just wasn't in a place to make plans for the month until the third week of the month, which is okay. That happens sometimes. I don't think it's too late, and it's not like you have to plan on the nose on the 30th or the 31st of a month. It's just whatever works for you in that time frame. So I really didn't start planning until it looks like maybe March 13th is the first date I have on here. But from there, I broke down two things that I wanted to do. I wanted to finish my Citrine Light sweater, and I wanted to start the Quadrophenia blanket. And I will say, I did do at least one of those things. So my Citrine Light is still not finished. However, it's still technically the last week of March. So maybe, you know what, I don't even want to say it because I think I'm going to need more time than that to really figure out what I need to do with the sweater. Actually, when I just stopped the camera here, I was looking at the picture of it again and I'm like, I think I need the longer ribbing. I think I need to rib it back, maybe take a couple rows of the stockinette out and like knit that 3 inches of ribbing. It just doesn't look proportional. Something about it doesn't look right. So I think I need to take it back. It's worth a try. So maybe that getting finished over the next week. And then my Quadrophenia, I feel like I blew that out of the water. It is started, it is going full force, and I feel really comfortable with where I'm at with that. So that's March. I didn't take any note of my stash because that is not something that I have focused on right now. My stash is growing though, and I don't want it to get too big because my goal was to have 0 stash at the end of last year. And the thought was that I would continue to really not have stash, that I would work through all of my mini skeins and scraps and I would just be totally cleared out at 0 except for new projects I'm going to begin. So things like getting yarn for my next project doesn't, to me, read stash, but I am starting to collect yarns and there's still some in there and there's like leftovers. So here's a picture of what it looks like right now at the end of March, just so I have a reference point. And then of course I want to continue working on that and just not adding too much. All right, so I did already do April project plans in a separate video. If you haven't seen that already, it is my spring project planning video, but I did that early on in March, in the middle of March, and I needed to reassess now that it's the end of March. I know a little better where my projects are at. And so I just did a redo here today, and this is what it looks like. And since I've been feeling a little bit overwhelmed lately, just with a lot of different things going on with work things, like decisions that I need to make, with life decisions that I need to make, I knew something needed to give, and I wanted to give myself a lot of space this month, this coming month in April, for my knitting to not feel super pressured. So my goals are very, very, very simple. I've written down all the projects that I had in mind, which is 4 projects. My Muscle Burrow hat, which is just an ongoing project. I didn't work on it this week, which is why I didn't show it. My Quadrophenia, which is already started. My All of the Lights, which I showed you the yarn. And then another project I had in mind to start was a diaphanous raglan, which is another sweater, a short sleeve sweater. So keeping in mind simplifying things, I decided to cross that diaphanous raglan off the list. It doesn't mean that I couldn't at some point start it in April if things change, but right now I don't want to have it down as something that I am like, must be done in the month of April, because I just want to kind of ease into the projects that I already have and enjoy starting my All of the Lights cardigan. who knows how that one's gonna go? I don't know yet. So I just have some simple things for myself. So next week, I want to swatch all of the lights. I'm gonna give myself a whole, basically, today's Tuesday. I'm gonna give myself until next week to even start swatching. Try to finish my Citrine Light. So I'll give myself another whole week to swatch. And then that next week, week 2 of April, I have cast on. So I feel like that's reasonable and gives me lots of space. And then everything else I have on here is just about Quadrophenia. That's it. I'm not gonna worry about anything else. I wanna get the Quadrophenia done, but that's it, really. I'm not worried about anything else. So I've written on here Quadrophenia and then the colors that I'm gonna be doing. So next week will be colors 9, 10, 11, and 12, then 13, 14, 15, 16, and so on all the way up to 24. That's it. Simple, doable, I think, and if plans need to change, then I will change them when I get to them. As always, we have some great questions that I cannot wait to answer. We have a couple of 2-part questions today, so I'm going to be only answering 4 questions today. But if you ever have a question for me, just leave a comment below with the hashtag question. I know I can't get to all of them, so if I have not been able to answer your question, feel free to just copy it over and put it on next week's podcast, and I will do my best to get to it. All right, this first question comes to us from Gnomes? I don't know how to say that name exactly. Question, how do you know if the fit in the underarms is right before you split for the sleeves? Where should the armholes sit? Okay, that is a very good question. So I think the best way to figure out how deep your armhole needs to be is to actually take a sweater, whether it's store-bought or hand knit or hand crocheted. That just doesn't sound right. Crocheted. And see, like, lay it flat and measure the armhole depth from that sweater. I think that's a lot easier than trying to measure on your body, like, where does your armhole need to be? But I think you're asking about where, like, it should be on your body if you're trying it on. So use that measurement for measuring it when you lay your sweater flat. But if you're trying it on, this can be really tricky because you don't have the body weight or the body, like, it might not even be connected for you to really see where the underarm is going to come. So I would say a general rule is that you want to have it be like maybe 2 inches below your actual like armpit. I don't know if 2 inches is like maybe less than 2 inches, maybe 1.5 inches or 1 inch, but you don't want it to come like right up into the armpit. That's going to be too small. I think my armhole depth is something like 8 inches, if that helps at all. It can be pretty deep. But if your armhole is coming from like right here at the bone part of the arm, can't see that, right here, or like up here at the bony part of the arm, that's gonna be a different measurement than if your armhole is here on the bicep as for like a drop shoulder. So it definitely depends on the style of sweater as well. But I would say as a general rule, if you can like pinch the 2 fabrics from the front and the back together and they are touching your armpit, you need to go longer. There needs to be a little bit of space between your actual armpit and where the sweater drops. At least that's what's comfortable for me. Now, as far as a yoke sweater, that's usually where I am really looking at that like yoke depth, and that's the yoke, since it's circular, is also your armhole depth. So that's where it's gonna come down a little bit further than other styles of sweater. Man, wearing black today is really not serving me, is it? It's like hard to see. So when you're knitting a circular yoke, just imagine a circle and then like all pieces come out the same length. That doesn't mean they hit your body at the same point because the plane at the front of you is not the same as the back. So you really have to kind of get your like neckline to where it's going to be if you're trying on a yoke sweater, and then again you can pinch it underneath your armholes. You may even find that you want to use like little clips or what are these things called? Stitch markers or something, just to kind of simulate that. I find that when I'm doing a circular yoke, it's gonna come down like pretty far, like usually kind of like nipple lined, which then equates to being pretty far down on my arm. Like, see how where my sleeves are now? I would say close to that. But again, you can kind of pinch underneath your underarm to put together the front and back pieces. If they are not able to touch, you need to go further. If they are like right in your armpit, you need to go further. If you can pinch them together comfortably with 1 inch of fabric, you are probably there. I know that wasn't an exact science. I am not a sweater expert. I'm just sharing things that I have experienced in the past. So hopefully that gives you a starting point. I promise as you knit more sweaters, you'll become more comfortable assessing where you personally need your armhole depth to be. All right, let's go to the next question. This one is a two-parter. The first question is from Macy. Would you recommend advent calendars? As dyers are beginning to post them, I am tempted. They are a big investment in an unknown though. Any thoughts? The second question is also about advent calendars, I think. Hold on, wait. Yes, this one is from Enna. Yes, that's 2 N's. I couldn't tell if it was an M or 2 N's. This one is from Enna. Are you planning to pre-order any 2023 yarn advent calendars? And if so, which ones? Okay, so 2 questions all about advent calendars. Okay, so I am definitely going to be purchasing some advent calendars this year. But let's talk about the first question. Is it worth purchasing an advent calendar? So advent calendars, let's talk about this. Actually, wait, stay right here. I'm getting something else. This may not be the perfect example because this is technically a 31-day calendar, but let's just look at this. This is another advent from Fangirl Fibers. Do you see how much yarn is in here? Advent calendars are a lot of yarn. So a typical advent calendar is going the average one, and you definitely need to look at the details of the specific one you're purchasing. But typically, they're going to be fingering weight. I know there's other ones out there, but typically they're fingering weight. 24 to 25 colors, 20 grams each, and sometimes there's also a 100 gram skein or even an optional 100 gram skein on the 25th day. The intent with advent calendars is for you to open them 1 per day in the month of December, from December 1st to December 25th. There's a lot of caveats and a lot of different things. Some people do more days, less days, different weights of yarn, different put-ups of yarn, like not 20 grams. They're all different. Some people's advent calendars are like this, where there's just a bunch of different colors. Some people's advent calendars are meant to go together. They're gradients. You're going to see a lot of similar colors. Some people have a theme, like this one was a Pokemon themed. So each group of 5 has kind of a different color scheme, and it's a different type of Pokemon, which was really fun. My Quadrophenia yarn is all Disney themed, so all of the colors are named something to do with Disney, and the colors in the yarn actually match that. Some people don't name the colors that they do. Some people, some dyers, will actually take their most popular colors from the year and dye those. Some dyers have brand new colors in their advent. It's just, they're all different, but I say all of this to just let you know what's out there and to do your research, because I definitely don't. I'm just like, oh, I like this dyer. It's named Pokemon, bye. And that usually works out for me because I already know that I like that dyer's dye style. I like their yarn, and so I'm fine with it. But let's say you're somebody who really wants to make a project, and you want to be able to open your yarn each day and knit with that color or crochet with that color, and then open the color the next day and knit with that and crochet with that, and know that it's going to come out and be something beautiful. There are certain dyers that cater more towards that than others. Some of them are not going to look so great if you just like open them day by day and then knit them up into something. It will not look great. Some of them you may want to open and then at the end take all the colors, rearrange them, and then make something. It just, think about what you want to do with your advent. Do you want to just open it? Do you want it to be cohesive? Do you want to work with it every day? And then start looking for dyers that fit that criteria. My best tip is to make sure that the dyers that you are following, if they're a style that you really, really like, get their advent calendar. If you already like them, that's the one to go for. I don't really think there's a resource of, Here's when dyers post their advent calendars. Everyone's in their own business, so it's all a little bit all over the place. So you really have to be on top of things and like looking at Instagram, listening to people share things on YouTube. It is not the easiest process, but do I think it's worth it? Yes, it's so much fun to be able to open up a new yarn every single day, whether you work with it right away or wait to work with it. I just think it's like makes December super, super special and super, super fun. And especially if you're the person who makes December special for other people, I think you deserve to have something that's for you throughout that month. So advent calendars are expensive because they take a lot of time. They take a lot of effort. Just think of all the planning of all those different colors. And then they take a lot of time to package and send. So that's why dyers do them really, really early, oftentimes. So they already know what they're getting into. They've already funded that so that they can make that investment in buying all that yarn and buying all that dye. And then they usually send them out in November, sometimes October. So it's a lot to put at risk. I understand that. I know people that will make sure that they just like save their Christmas money if they receive anything for Christmas, to then buy an advent calendar for the next year, or just, you know, set aside some savings, because it does happen early on in the year. What was the other part of the question? I wanted to make sure I answered both. Oh, am I planning to get any? So yes, right now I'm planning to get 2 advent calendars. I think that is enough. But I guess how do I say this? Like, I am lucky to be in a position where sometimes I am gifted things, gifted advent calendars to either open or show, or just because a dyer wants to with no obligations. So sometimes I end up with more advents than I really plan to get. So just know that. But my plans right now are to get a Homespun House advent calendar from Molly of a Homespun House. She gifted me one last year, and I am so fortunate to be able to get one again this year, so I am very excited about that. And then I am also planning to purchase one from Suburban Stitcher if I can. It is an all pink advent, which is totally my game. Diane, who is Suburban Stitcher, she had, oh, what's her name? She had somebody design a beautiful shawl last year, and I think they're going to be designing a shawl with her advent again this year. So if you're somebody who likes a cohesive advent, something that will go together into one project, whether you knit the shawl that's designed for it or not, Suburban Stitcher is a great place to go to. So those are the 2 I'm planning to get, and I'm really excited for both of them. All right, let's go to the next question. This one's also a 2-parter. Okay, so this question says, let me get it over here. It's too small for my eyes. This question is from Astrid. Hi Natalie, I'm knitting the summer sorrel at the moment. I split for the sleeves and put it on the try-on cords to block it and try it on. But the cord is so wonky and wobbly, I can't really see the fit. The stitches are either too far away or still too close together. How do you manage the cord and the stitches to be just fine when trying things on mid-project? Thank you for the great podcast and the information you share. The next question is also about try-it-on tubing, and this one is from Alicia. How do your try-on cords do when you get them wet? Do they dry quickly? I have this fear of trapped water leading to mold and mildew inside of mine. I love your podcast and your knits. Thank you, super, what am I saying? Thank you so much. Super thanks. Oh my goodness. Okay, so let's talk about using try-it-on tubing. So when you are using try-it-on tubing to try on a sweater, you need your stitches to be spread out evenly, and when you pull it on, your stitches are going to spread on that cord. So you actually need to take the cord and pull on it and get your stitches all lined up. You don't want them to be tight and pulled in too much. My gosh, I have like makeup in my fingernails, I guess, from scratching my face. Gross. I hope it hasn't looked like I have dirty nails. Okay, distraction over. So you need to pull on that cord so that all of your stitches line up. Again, not too squished in, but basically so they mimic how they're going to hang, so they look lined up to the knitted fabric that you have. If they're looking really wobbly and wonky, you need to tighten them up. They're going to stretch when you pull it on, so it's okay. I think even in my Citrine Light try-on, you can see, actually let's put that back up here. You can see that it's like wavy on the bottom. After I took that picture, I did pull on the cords and tighten things up a little bit. I also think mine's due a little bit to it being a lot of fabric. But yeah, pull on those and it will give you a much more accurate picture of what it's going to look like on. Unfortunately, it's still not the perfect picture of how it's going to be, because with that cord pulled tighter so that your stitches are lined up, you've restricted the movement. Like, your stitches are not going to have that same tightness to them, but it's very, very close. And then as far as blocking with the tubing, I've never even thought about them getting moldy inside. I don't really think that's an issue. I leave mine out to dry for 24 to 48 hours before I put them away. Like with the sweater, I leave them in the sweater and then I try it on. So yeah, by the time I put it away, it's been at least 48 hours. And I don't think that there's going to be water trapped in there still at that point. I guess if you're still worried about it, you could just leave the cord out to dry, maybe hang it over your shower rail or something, or maybe in a place that's less damp, and let it get really, really, really dry. But I think it's going to be totally, totally fine. All right, let's go to the last question. Let me see if I can find it. I pulled things up weirdly here. Okay, this is a good one, and I think it's going to spark some interesting discussions in the comments. This question is from Tristan. I've been wondering why I usually only see knitters using more luxury yarns over crocheters. I've been wanting to get into hand-dyed yarns as a person who crochets, but I usually only find knitting patterns when I look up fingering weight as well. Why do you think that is? I think that is a really, really interesting question. So I feel like there's always been this kind of tension between knitting and crochet, and something that I can't stand is when knitters feel like they are like better than crocheters in some way because of using fingering weight or because of using hand-dyed yarn. Come on, people, that is not what it's about at all. So let's talk about why people might use less hand-dyed yarn and crochet. I think there's a lot of very practical reasons why. So one, crochet uses so much more yarn than knitting. I don't know what the actual math is, but I would say it's somewhere like in the 25% more range, maybe even more than that. So just to make the same like size garment, you're gonna need more yarn in crochet. So financially, if you think about it, that's gonna make everything in crochet more expensive if you need more yarn. So that's one practical reason. The other reason is that crochet is going to usually make a fabric faster than knitting. So if I am making a t-shirt in knitting, it is going to take me X number of hours to like knit up an inch, right? But in crochet, it may take me half the time to make an inch. Therefore, I'm moving through pieces faster, using more yarn, and again, the factor is that it's going to be a lot more expensive. So I don't know, I just think that like those are two really practical reasons why in crochet you're not going to see as much hand-dyed yarn. However, things are definitely changing in crochet. There are some really amazing designers who are crocheting with hand-dyed yarns. They're not only using hand-dyed yarns, they're also mixing it up with yarns that come from big box stores. Big box stores are also starting to understand that knitters and crocheters of all budgets want to have like animal fibers and blends and beautiful colors and hand-dyed techniques. So you're starting to see that reflect in all of the designs as well. I have a couple of designers I'm going to suggest for you, but I think that we, like as knitters and crocheters, often use what we see other people use. So when you're in when you're in the knitting world, at least on YouTube, what do you see people use a lot? You see people use fingering weight, you see people use hand-dyed yarn. Last fall, when a bunch of designers, well-known designers, started using sport weight, what do you see everyone use now? Everyone's starting to use sport weight, or everyone's starting to use spin cycle. We love trends. we love it. In crochet, I think that when you first enter knitting or crochet, you're going to use what you see other people use. So if your introduction is a yarn store, you're just going to say like, okay, people use hand-dyed yarn. But if you learn to knit at a Joann's or a Michael's or something like, I guess Michael's doesn't have, does Michael's have classes? Anyway, you're going to use those things. So whatever people are around you are using is likely what you're going to see as normal. So I caveat all this to say that there are people from both crafts that use all different kinds of yarn, hand-dyed and not, and all of that is perfectly okay and great. So if you want to, as a crocheter, use more hand-dyed yarn, I'm going to suggest a few creators that you can follow. You can look at their patterns, you can follow them on Instagram, you maybe already, that use fingering weight, that use hand-dyed yarn, because it sounds like that's something that you really want to use. And I will also say that I've made patterns from both of these designers, and because they're crochet and fingering weight, to me, they took a long time because I'm a slower crocheter, but they are still going to be, like, I always feel like a project is a lot more bang for your buck when it takes a long time, which is kind of nice. Like, you know, you spend a lot of money on yarn. I mean, hello, spend a lot of money on a sweater's quantity. You kind of want it to like take a long time. You don't want to be done in 2 hours. It's not going to be worth it. So I feel like these designers do that. Okay, anyway. Toni Lipsey of TL Yarn Crafts is a fantastic crocheter. She does a lot of crochet. I think lately it's been a lot of Tunisian crochet as well, which is very fun. Has a lot of patterns in fingering weight yarn and DK weight yarn. The flat iron shawl is one of the, I think it's the first crochet project I did in hand-dyed fingering weight yarn, and I was like, oh my gosh, this makes me want to crochet more. Like, I love this. And it's a really simple pattern, but it's a beautiful shawl. So that's a really great place to start. Toni Lipsey, she is great. And then the other designer that I can think of is Stephanie Aaron. She's by Stephanie Aaron. She does a lot of garments, and she uses all types of yarn. So one may be a fingering weight sweater and hand-dyed yarn, and the next one may be like Kobu. Isn't that Lion brand? Or that's like a world that I'm not as familiar with, but she uses so many different types of yarn, and all of her garments come out beautiful. They are amazing. They are like contemporary and cute. So those may be a couple places to start. I feel like if you start looking at these people or anyone who's similar, then it starts introducing you to other people that design like them and other people that design like them, and then you just will find so many options. So if you're a crocheter and you know some designers that work with fingering weight yarns and hand-dyed yarns, and you want to like shout them out and drop them down below so that we can provide a resource for, who asked this question? Oh gosh, who asked this question? Tristan. Then that would be really, really great, and add to the discussion down below. Alright, the newest video that is out on my channel is another vlog. This one is from a few of the days that I spent in Nashville with my parents a couple weeks ago. I was mostly knitting through my Citrine Light, so if you want to see that journey and the struggle of trying to figure out what to do, that's all in there. I also started my Quadrophenia in that vlog. There's a little bit of flying, there's a little bit of going to Bliss Yarns. What else is in there? Oh, my mom is in the vlog. So if you enjoy vlogs, you're gonna love that one. That one is up on the channel now. Coming up next, I actually don't have plans yet for next week's video. There's a small chance that we might not have a video next week. Feeling a little bit behind. There's just been a lot going on. But I am planning some videos for the month of April that are going to be sort of a audience participation. So if you're not following me on Instagram at Knitty Natty, just make sure you're on there, and that, oh my gosh, so many sirens today. I can't hear myself think. Okay, I think it's gone. But over on my Instagram, I'm going to be posting some different prompts and stories, and your question or your answer may be included in a video, so definitely make sure you're paying attention there. The Love and Stitches membership opens on Tuesday, April 4th at 12 p.m. Eastern Time. You definitely want to set an alarm in your phone because we have only 100 spots available. And when I checked today, I have 230 people on the wait list. So that means that the 230 people on the wait list are going to get the sign up link 1 hour early. So there is a chance that the membership spots for new members will actually fill before I can even open it to the public. So if you are dead set on getting into the membership for this term, which is April, May, June, and July, then you'll want to make sure you're signed up on the wait list so that you get that early opening link. And then if there are any more spots available, I will be posting the link on my Instagram stories at noon on Tuesday, April 4th. We're really excited for this semester. We are like working so hard to continue making the membership just a place that is fun and inviting and just a community. And it seems weird to say that after saying we only have 100 spots, but that's one of the reasons we're doing it, is we want it to still be close-knit, pun intended, and small, and not be so large that we kind of lose that sense of the community. So if you want to join, just make sure you're on that wait list. I just have a feeling things are going to go really, really fast. Okay, something else I have coming up is a test application. If you're a crocheter, then listen up. On Friday, this coming Friday, March 31st at 12 p.m. Eastern Time, again, that seems to be the time that I like to release things, I am going to be opening an application for my mini yarn cozy crochet version. So there's going to be two different mini yarn cozies, the 20 gram and the 50 gram, to match what I already have in my knit yarn cozy collection. And I am actually thinking about just going ahead and putting on there, if you're interested in a DK weight version. I don't have that one ready. It's not going to be ready for a while, but just gauging interest and go ahead and using that applicant pool, because I know you're a crocheter, I know you're interested in testing, and then being able to reach out to you when I'm ready for the DK weight version. So just be ready to fill out that application. It's a Google form, so it's much easier to do on a computer. At noon, I'll be posting it on my Instagram stories. You know what? Maybe I can actually get it posted down below here. I think I have a way to make it not open until noon. But there will be limited spaces in the application, because if I leave it open, then I get, then I have too many responses to even go through, and then it's like really overwhelming, and then I can't pick anyone. And then I have a hard time eliminating and choosing people because I feel bad. So I usually try to just limit the applicant pool to about 50 people. And then I select somewhere usually around 15 people from within that. Things that are always required in my test is having a public Instagram account, being able to put your project onto Ravelry, and just generally I look for somebody who has a lot of knitting posted on Instagram, and I'm looking for a variety of experience levels. So I don't just want expert crocheters, I want people who have crocheted a little bit or not a lot, because I want everyone to be able to read my patterns. So that is not a factor that is going to keep you away from this, but you do need to know how to crochet in the round. And then the last thing is just that I want to mention again that we are putting chapters on the podcast. So if you ever lose your place in a podcast or need to come back to it, if you look along the player bar at the bottom, or even scroll down to the bottom of the description, you'll find a list of all the different segments and timestamps to find them. All right. We have had quite the week, both mentally and physically and work-wise. And so when I think about all the things that have happened this week, and then look at how much knitting I've done, I feel pretty good about it. I wasn't feeling so good when I started the podcast, but I actually have done quite a bit. You okay, Toaster? When I took Toaster out this morning, he projectile vomited all over the breezeway. Luckily, we were already outside, but sometimes I don't think he feels very good. Poor buddy. He's okay now. Okay, so let's talk about the last week. So last Wednesday, I had a long-awaited varicose veins procedure. So I'm not going to talk in too many details because I know there are people out there that may be squeamish, but I have had varicose veins for about 3 years. I had, well, I guess about 4 years, because I had a procedure in 2020 that helped a lot for about a year. And then I started to feel discomfort again. And so I started the process in, I guess, November of this last year in 2022 of going to a doctor here in New York. It is a process because it takes time to get approved by insurance and all of this stuff, and then you have to go to a bunch of appointments. And I finally had my procedure scheduled. So I had that on Wednesday. It's nothing super major, especially like my case is pretty mild, but I did have to spend 2 days wrapped up from ankle to knee in an ACE bandage. So I've got a picture of that here. So that meant for several days I was sitting on the couch working, even after I went on Friday and they removed all of my bandages. I was still feeling a little bit sore. It really wasn't painful, like, thankfully, but it's still not like so super comfortable. I have some bruising and things, so I'm still healing from that. I keep reminding myself, like, even though like mentally I'm like, okay, my thing is off, like I'm good, like I'm still healing. I still had a procedure done and they actually put me to sleep, which I didn't know until I got there. So I'm just reminding myself to chill a little bit. And so yeah, just took it easy, worked a lot from the couch with my little lap desk last week. And I'm feeling much, much better from it. If you have varicose veins, start the conversation with your primary care doctor so they can refer you, because it can be a long process, but it is worth it when you feel better and you don't have to wear compression and all of that. So Kent also wasn't 100% this week. He's been suffering from a cold. So this weekend we really just spent a lot of time hanging out on the couch together. It was a rainy weekend. We had a movie day. We actually, I think I have a picture here of like what it looked like outside. It's always so cool from our point of view up here in the clouds when you can like just see no buildings around you. It's really, really neat. And then we did a night where we just did like popcorn and candy. So I've got all the candy out, which was really, really fun. I love doing that instead of eating a meal, instead of cooking. It's so much fun. On Sunday was the Knit for Food Knit-a-thon hosted by Laura Nelkin. It was my first year participating and I had a ton of fun. That's when I made these all day, but I went to a lot of the Zooms that they had. I hosted an Instagram Live. I hosted our members on Zoom. Then we had a Pride and Prejudice watch party with our members. And then I got to be part of a game night for the Knit for Food audience, which was also very fun. Actually, there is the YouTube video is on Laura's account, so I'll try to remember to link that down below so you can actually go and watch that last bit of the Knit for Food Knit-a-thon. We ended up raising, I think, like $2,400, just the Love and Stitches community. So thank you all so much. We did an amazing job. And overall, I believe the final number was something like $330,000 that is going to be divided up between the 4 organizations that are a part of the Knit for Food Knit-a-thon. So amazing job, everyone. It felt really good to be able to use knitting to be able to do some good and to help. Then on Monday was Kent's birthday. So I know he's going to hear this because he's going to edit this, but I think it would be amazing if you can just blow up the comments and leave Kent some happy birthday wishes. He does a lot of work for the Love and Stitches community that nobody really ever gets to see the work, but you do see his work because you see all of these videos that he has edited. I think for the last year he's been editing just about every single video for me. And so he contributes a lot. If you're a Love and Stitches member, he does a lot of stuff for us. He works on spreadsheets and games and all sorts of things. So it is something that we couldn't do without him. So I think it would be really great for his birthday if you can wish him a happy birthday. That would make me very, very happy. Okay, so I have been reading and I have some thoughts about A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. I'm not done yet. I am 95% of the way done with the first book. And it's definitely gotten better. I shared on my Instagram that I was like reading it during the day. Usually I just read in the morning and at night, but I was reading during the day on Saturday because we just spent a lot of time on the couch on screens, and I'm like, I just need a break from like screens. I need to read. And I just don't really understand how a book gets so popular when it is such a drag for the first book. People said that the second book is so much better, but I'll be honest, I'm not sure I'm going to read it. I can't say I've hated this book or anything, or I would have stopped reading it, but it has been really slow. But then a couple of people mentioned something called world building, that like this book is a world building book. And I think that's something that I've never been exposed to before, or like never liked before. I didn't look up what it meant. I just read between the lines and figured that that meant that you are, as the author is like building the world, they're like introducing all the different types of people and characters and things and like really explaining them. And I think what I've learned about myself is that I don't really like that. That's like too boring to me. And I don't know what that says about me and my intellect, but it is what it is. I like some nerdy things, and I definitely think A Court of Thorns and Roses is kind of nerdy in a good way. But I just don't think I'm like smart enough for it. I don't think it holds my attention long enough, and maybe fantasy in this manner is just not the right thing for me, and that's okay. So many people love the books. So many people also sent me messages saying they struggled with it too, so I feel a lot better. And you know what? We can read whatever we want to read because it's for entertainment, and that's okay. I guess I will just reserve any further judgment until I finish the book. It is getting a lot more interesting, but it's not like I think sometimes when I'm reading a book that is just okay to me, I forget that there are books that just like capture me, and like that's the feeling I want every time I read. And I know that's probably not very realistic, but you know how like if you've ever read a really good book that just makes you want to like go to bed at night so you can read, you understand that feeling, and it's like you don't have to put yourself through anything else, right? Except I guess there's something about this book that I'm really liking, that I'm liking enough to like keep going. I definitely want to see what happens here at the end, but I don't know if it's upticked enough for me to read the next part of the series. So I am sorry to disappoint everybody that loves A Court of Thorns and Roses, but I'm just not sure it's right for me. If you want to suggest some other books for me, go right ahead. Okay, we've also been watching quite a bit of TV. We are watching Ted Lasso on Apple TV each week when that comes out. Also finished the Bachelor season, so watched that for 3 hours last night, and that's 3 hours of my life that I cannot get back. We finished The Last of Us on HBO. We were a little bit behind on that. Now we're done. Such a great show if you haven't seen it already. The Last of Us, definitely heavier, but also just not a real world. So it's heavy, but I think it's a little bit easier to watch than some other things like the Murdoch trials. The other thing that we watched this week is the first Lord of the Rings. I've never actually seen Lord of the Rings, and that's because I just didn't, like when my brother was watching it with my dad growing up, it just was so long and I couldn't get into it. So are you seeing a theme of my interests here with the book and the movie? But I liked it a lot more watching it this time. So Kent has been wanting me to watch The Lord of the Rings, so I think we're going to continue watching them, and I enjoyed it. And you know what? Everything is more enjoyable with knitting, but I genuinely did like it. Okay, I want to wrap up my March intentions so that we can wrap up March, and then next week I'll tell you about what I have planned for April, because last time I did them in the same episode and it was too much. So let's wrap up March. So for March I had 3 intentions: a personal one, a business one, and a knitting one. And my personal one was to learn to do my makeup. And I am calling this one off. I'm not at the end of the month yet, and every week I feel like I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do it, and I just haven't done it. And you know what? Instead of like letting it drag on or feeling guilty about it, I'm gonna say I'm done with it. I'm not gonna learn to do my makeup right now, and that is okay. I can always do it later on. I had a lot of interest in it when I picked out that as a goal, and then as the month went on, other things just took priority. And again, it's okay. You can change things. Sometimes you just have to pick something in order to start moving towards something that you really need to do, and then you can change your mind, and it's okay. So makeup is off the list, and we're feeling no guilt whatsoever. My business goal for this month was to give designing another try in a different way. I had design, I think it was 1 hour twice a week. In my February goal, it did not work out for me. But this month I've taken a different path, and I've actually like selected exactly what I'm gonna be doing in the design process, and then deciding how much time that's gonna take each week. And that has worked out so much better for me. So this week my goal was to draft up the pattern. So that means getting into Microsoft Word, drafting up a pattern, and then map out a testing timeline. I'm so happy to say that I did both of those things this week, even when it wasn't looking like I was gonna get them done. I made it a priority, I worked a little extra, and I got it done, and actually went even a little bit beyond that, because my goal for this week, this last week of March, is to actually start working on the pattern. And so I have a little bit to show you. I'm not done yet. This is the pattern that I'm going to be calling for testers on Friday. The test actually won't start for a couple of weeks, but I want to go ahead and get my testers picked, give them the timeline, and then that way they have a couple of weeks to like prepare if they want to finish up any other projects or get yarn or whatever they need to do. Then they're ready for it, and by the time I have the pattern done, instead of waiting until I have the pattern done and then starting with the testers, my normal preference, I want to get this done before we do a cozy along in May. So I have part of a tiny baby cozy. Isn't it so cute? This is going to be the 20-gram crochet yarn cozy. It's such a tiny little baby. It's going to look, I don't think I have a crocheted one here, but it's going to look very much like the 100-gram version, just much, much smaller. There's going to be a 20-gram and a 50-gram. And once these are tested and the pattern is out, I will have 20, 50, 100-gram sizes in knitting and crochet, which will just make me feel complete. Not totally complete, there's more I want to do, but I wanted to at least get things balanced first. So I have been working on this little guy, and I can't wait to get back to working on him a little bit more later on. My last intention is my yarny intention, which was to begin my All of the Lights cardigan. I wanted to step away from having a scrap-free 2023 goal for the month of March and instead focus on my All of the Lights cardigan. And you know what? We've been moving slowly in the right direction, but it doesn't look like I'm going to cast on in March. And again, that's okay. It's not like I didn't do anything. I have made a decision and I have my yarn. So now that I have this, I can plan for the future. So my plan is to swatch next week and then cast on in the second week of April. And the world will keep on revolving and it will just all be fine. So yeah, those are my March intentions. And next week I will be sharing with you what my plans are for April. I am going to be taking things back into a more like structured format that just seems to work a lot better for me. And so I am excited to share with you what I'm going to be doing. Well, that's everything for this week. Thank you so much for watching. I definitely feel more energy and more joy just in doing this, recording this, and talking with you. I just want to go and work on all of my projects now. So I'm going to let you go, and I will see you in the next one.